Let's talk about this wonderful women's Olympic tourney that we've watched so far. Let's talk about these two teams, Tony, that'll be in the final. Sweden and Germany. No surprise with Germany. Big time surprise with Sweden. Your thoughts, Tony?
Well, Sweden basically had a bad World Cup last summer. They started this event badly, and I think they realized that they needed to kind of circle the wagons, play a much deeper, organized defense, and look to counterattack when they can. It worked against the USA, even though they gave up 27 shots and conceded 1 goal, and then it worked against Brazil, and they gave up over 30 shots but didn't concede any goals. They took it to penalty kicks, and they won. So they've got a formula for winning, and of course, Pia Sundhage, the former U.S. coach, this is her 3rd gold medal game in a row. The last 2 she won with the USA. So she's got the experience. She's got her team organized, and even though I do have Germany as a favorite, Sweden's in a good place.
Tony, let's talk about Germany. Watching Canada yesterday go down to Germany, to me, they look like a team that was vulnerable at certain stages of the game. They look beatable. They did not look like the German machine we've seen in years past. Your thoughts?
Well, you're right, Anthony. I mean, Germany has had the easiest road to the final. They played Zimbabwe, beat them 6-1. Then had a difficult game against Australia, tied that match. I believe it was 2-2. Then got beat by Canada. And then in the quarterfinal, they got the easiest draw in the quarterfinal, even though they came in second in their group, and that was China. They beat China 1 or 2-0. Then they got a rematch with Canada. It was going to be very difficult for Canada to beat them twice. And now they're in the gold medal game. So they avoided the USA, they avoided France, they avoided Brazil, and they're in the gold medal game. So that may work against them. Their toughest opponent was Australia, and Canada also had a great World Cup and is playing for the bronze medal. But when you look at Sweden, Sweden had to play both the USA and Brazil to get into the gold medal game. So they're seasoned, they're ready, but I still have Germany as the favorite.
Tony, let's talk about some of the disappointments for you in this tourney and also some of the surprises. For me, I was disappointed in France. I was big time disappointed in them. I thought that they would go a lot further than they did. They lost, obviously, as we saw, and they did not get to the medal round. I'm really surprised there and shocked. Happy to see how far Sweden has gone. I really think that they could pull off the upset. Who have you been happy to see and who have you been disappointed in?
Well, the most improved team since the World Cup, without doubt, is Canada. John Herdman has done a great job with them. That's a young team. They have players that are going into college, starting on that team, like Fleming, that will be going to UCLA, much like Mallory Pugh for the USA is also going to UCLA. But they're playing a good brand of football, and they're athletic. They can pass the ball around. Unfortunately, Christine Sinclair is near the end of her career, but Janine Becky played at Texas Tech, and by the way, was cut by the USA U20 team, is emerging as an international star for Canada. So they were the most improved. The big disappointments, you hit probably the biggest one, and that's France. They just don't play with a pulse. They think they're going to pass the ball around and eventually create goal-scoring chances, score goals, and move on in the tournament. And I think it starts with Bergeron, their coach, but their leadership. This is a very talented team, Anthony. And for them not to be having more of an impact in the world game is just, astonishing. And then, of course, the USA is the other disappointment. The USA talked a lot of bravado going into the Sweden game, bring on Sweden. This is when we begin to play. This is when it's fun. But as it turned out, it wasn't fun. So I've been covering both the women's tournament and the men's tournament. Today, the Brazilian men hammered Honduras 6-0. But what they did, and it was hot here today, 90 degrees at the stadium, what they did is they went out and put Honduras under pressure, and immediately Neymar scored a goal in 15 seconds. And for some reason, the USA doesn't really put teams under pressure. They're playing this continental defense. It's better than it was in the World Cup, but I'm saying put teams under pressure, raise the intensity level of the game, the speed of the game, because there's a lot of teams that can't play with the USA when the speed of the game is raised. Unfortunately, the USA is letting teams play and then trying to break them down. It didn't work against Sweden. The USA didn't really have their attack going 100%, and unfortunately the defense wasn't as good as it was in the World Cup last summer, and they're out of the tournament earlier than any World Cup or Olympic USA team has ever been out of the tournament.
Tony, you're a winner. You've won. You've been in some big, heated games. You know that a lot of us say things we don't mean after losses. Maybe even after some big wins, we regret some of the things we've said. You've heard what Hope Solo has said, and it's the talk of that tourney up until this final now. I got to tell you, it left a real bad taste in my mouth and a lot of people's mouths all over the world on what she said in regards to Sweden. I don't know about you, but a lot of people have said, Tony, if it was a man, nobody would have said anything. They just would have shrugged it off. I disagree. Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal, when they played Iceland in the Euros that just finished, was absolutely torched for the comments he made about Iceland. And I believe Hope Solo should get the same treatment, if not more, with the words she chose. I'd like to hear from you, a guy that's been around so many games and so many players, your thoughts on her comments.
Well, yeah, I've heard the same comment about the men versus the women. I think poor sportsmanship, either in the men's side of the game and the women's side of the game, should be identified and criticized. And look, as we teach our youngest players, U10 players, to be humble when they win and respectful when they lose. And Hope Solo is a player that's played in many big games. She's experienced. She's a veteran. She's the only goalkeeper, men or women, that has 100 shutouts and 200 caps. For a player of that stature, it's not acceptable for her to, even in the disappointment in the game, we're all disappointed when we lose. Whether it's youth soccer or in the Olympics, it's devastating to lose a big game against a rival, et cetera, et cetera. We have to temper and control ourselves and not be disrespectful to the opponent. And in this case, Hope wasn't able to do that. It was disappointing. And I can tell you from my team, which was the 96, the first Olympic gold medalist, and the 99 World Cup champions, they were disappointed in that because that's not the reputation that the USA women have. We don't lose often, but when we lose, we're respectful and to the team that beat us, and that's what we should hope for all our athletes, men or women. And in this case, I wish Hope Solo had been bigger in the moment.
Tony, just before we let you go, I really appreciate your time joining us live from Rio and the Olympics there in Brazil. I want to get your thoughts on this. We start to see now that the gap is closing, that Brazil, USA, France, Germany, other countries like Sweden and some of the smaller countries are starting to catch up to them. How do you feel, how important do you feel it is here in North America that a real positive structured pro league for the women gets going from coast to coast, Pacific to the Northeast to the West in North America, and maybe all the MLS teams, all of them, not just maybe a couple, all of them get on board and have a women's team to help this game grow even more?
Well, Anthony, we have a good women's league. It's one of the best in the world. I'm not going to say it's the best in the world, but it's certainly in the top three, for sure in the top four. The NWSL has many good players. One of the best French players plays in Portland. We have excellent internationals from Canada, from the Netherlands. German players have played in our league. Swedish players have played in our league. The Swedish captain, Sager, played in the WPS. So we have a very good league. Unfortunately, there's not one player currently in the league in this gold medal game. So we're going to lose the ability to highlight the league. But what we need is for our national team coaches to look at that league and start seeing who's performing day in and day out. And they're doing that. Allie Long plays for Portland. 6 months ago, wasn't even in the picture. She started 2 or 3 games in this Olympics as the number 6 player, the holding midfielder. So players are coming out of the league. It's incredibly important that our youth national teams, as well as the league, develop players. If we only have one developing players, we're losing the opportunity to extend those players' ability to be seen after college. Now, the rest of the world is starting to put more programming, more money. They're attracting better athletes into their teams. The U.S. is still the leader, still ranked number 1. It's a disappointment that they went out of this tournament. They kind of ran out of luck. They had the luck last year in the World Cup, and this year in the Olympics they ran out of it. But I think it's great that more and more teams are capable of upsetting the big teams. We saw it in Copa. We saw it in the Euros. We're seeing it here in the Olympics. And I still think there's only 4 or 5, maybe 6, if we now look at Sweden as a potential gold medal team, that can win the big events. But there's many, many more teams that can upset the big teams on a one-off game.
Tony, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Safe travels back home. We really appreciate you making the time. And hey, there's a lot of people, when I told them you were coming on tonight, awaiting your arrival here in Toronto, hopefully sooner than later again, to a coaches conference or just a visit, because to pick your brain and to listen to you is always a joy, Tony.
Well, I appreciate that, Anthony. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I hope that Canada wins the bronze medal game. I think that would be a great testament to this young team and their development.